Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be talking about the threat of a significant severe weather event over the next few days that'll be impacting areas like the Great Plains, the Midwest, and the Ohio Valley, with significant damaging winds, very large hail, and a few tornadoes all being a possibility. Additionally, some of the warmest weather that we've seen all year is on the horizon this week. So in today's forecast, we are going to break down exactly what you need to know about the weather that'll be impacting the United States over the next 7 days, and we'll begin with what's happening across the country today. And we've had a fairly active last few days, including showers and thunderstorms that are ongoing even this morning. We have one big complex of thunderstorms that is currently over Oklahoma, and this will be pushing into Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana throughout the morning and afternoon, with damaging winds and a low tornado risk existing. And then further off to the east, we have a broad low pressure system that continues to spin back over in Kentucky and Tennessee. This is really weakening and moving off to the east, but there is another low chance of an isolated tornado or two back over in Virginia and North Carolina later today. And on top of that, we have a lot of moisture across the east coast and the southeast that will continue to lead to multiple thunderstorms today. Also could lead to some very isolated severe weather as well. And then back over in the northern plains in the Midwest, we've had some big storms up there over the last couple of days, and we are expecting a lot more big storms as we go into this work week, with plenty of opportunities for severe weather in store. Now let's talk more about the severe weather potential for the next few days, and we'll begin with today, which is Sunday, and we have an enhanced risk of severe weather in place back over in the northern plains, and then a slight and marginal threat of severe weather that goes all the way back down into areas like Texas and Oklahoma. And we also have a marginal threat back over in the North Carolina and Virginia area, where all hazards of severe weather will be on the table today. But the reason why we have an enhanced risk is because of the damaging wind threat. In fact, we could see damaging winds as high as 70 to 80 miles per hour this afternoon and evening back over in Montana, North and South Dakota, and Wyoming. So make sure that you're staying weather aware and have multiple ways to receive warnings. Large to very large hail is also going to be a big concern back over in Montana. We could have a few storms that produce hail as large as the size of apples, maybe even a little bit larger than that. And then there is a low-end tornado risk here across the northern plains, and then a very small tornado risk if you're back over near Virginia Beach or in northeastern North Carolina for today. And then as we go into Monday, our threat of severe weather will be growing across the northern and central plains, and this is the beginning of a multi-day severe weather event that'll be impacting the northern plains, the Midwest, and even parts of the Ohio Valley, where all hazards of severe weather will be on the table every day. But the biggest concern will be the threat of damaging winds, as we are expecting multiple lines of thunderstorms. With that said, we do have a level 3 out of 5 enhanced risk for Monday currently in place across central and southern Minnesota and eastern South Dakota, and that slight risk going back over into Nebraska, South Dakota, and Wisconsin, where the biggest concerns across this area will be damaging winds, but really the primary concern will be large to very large hail, where we could see some storms produce hail as large as the size of softballs. So make sure that you're protecting your vehicle, especially around and just outside of Minneapolis, back into South Dakota, and a very small sliver there of northern North Dakota could see some giant hailstones. There's also a threat of tornadoes, and it is actually a bit more elevated. It is a 5% tornado risk across many areas in central and southern Minnesota, and also far eastern South Dakota, and then a lower tornado threat extends all the way back over to northern Nebraska and western Wisconsin. With all that said, Monday does appear to at least be slightly conditional, and we're going to talk more about why here in just a moment, but the chances of a live stream are pretty high, assuming that we have storms fire off, as storms will likely be pretty numerous to widespread across this region. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon so you're notified if and when we do go live on Monday. And then as we go into Tuesday, the threat of severe weather will continue to shift further down to the south, where additional damaging winds, large hail, and maybe even a few tornadoes will be a possibility. I think our greatest tornado threat on Tuesday will be located across parts of Kansas, mainly around Kansas City and also into southern Iowa. And I do want to mention that there's always a possibility that we end up getting a level 3 out of 5 enhanced risk of severe weather, depending on where the greatest confidence is for significant damaging winds, as we are expecting yet again another line of thunderstorms, which is why the next several days are just so concerning, is because we're talking pretty much about numerous to widespread storms every single day for the next 3 to 4 days. And then on Wednesday, the threat of severe weather will shift to the east across the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, and the Midwest, where all hazards of severe weather will once again be a possibility. Now let's go day by day with the timing of severe weather, beginning with what's happening today. And right now we have a broken line of showers and thunderstorms across Oklahoma and the Texas Panhandle. As we go later into this morning and into the early afternoon, this line will move across Texas with damaging winds and a very low tornado risk existing. And then by the early to mid-afternoon hours, those storms continue to move across areas like Abilene and eventually approaching Waco. We will likely also see a bunch of storms fire off across southeast Texas Texas later today. This will be just a lot of isolated hail if we end up getting any severe weather, but more than anything, just a bunch of pop-up showers and thunderstorms since we have so much moisture in the southern plains. And then by this evening, things will start to clear out, and then on Monday, I think things will be relatively dry across the southern plains. Back over in the northern plains, a little bit of a different story. A line of thunderstorms will be forming later today. Right around 4 to 5 o'clock is when storms will begin to initiate. Back over in Wyoming, southeast Montana, and western South Dakota. Once again, the biggest concern being damaging winds. If we end up getting an isolated supercell, though, out in front of our line, there could be a potential for an isolated tornado. So I'll have to keep an eye on this. There is a low chance of a live stream today, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel. By around 7 to 8 o'clock tonight, this will all start to bow out into multiple different segments of storms, with the main concern again being damaging winds and a low tornado risk. And then by around 10 to 11 o'clock tonight, these storms will move across central South Dakota and Nebraska, where only isolated damaging winds will be left over. We also may see a few supercells fire off around and just after midnight back over in southeastern Montana. The biggest concern with those being hail, wind, and a low tornado risk. And then eventually by Monday morning, these storms will be fizzling out. And then as we go into Monday, the threat of severe weather will likely be much more significant across parts of the Midwest and the central and northern plains. This is why we are expecting a lot of storms to fire off during the mid to late afternoon hours across Minnesota, and we are likely going to see some very big hail out of these initial supercells. But another concern is that we could see a few tornadoes out of these initial supercells as well, as long as they remain discreet, which around 4, 5, 6 o'clock is when I think we're going to be watching for the most significant threat of hail, in addition to tornadoes. By around 6 to 7 o'clock, these storms will likely start to bow out into bowing segments, which means the biggest concern by around 7 to 8 o'clock will transition into damaging winds. There could also be a few storms still producing very large hail, and maybe even a tornado or two. One thing I do want to point out is that this is still slightly conditional. The storms may not be this widespread, but if they are, we would obviously be talking about a lot of severe weather here across Minnesota. One of the more significant days of severe weather that we've had since that moderate risk of severe weather about a week ago from today. And then as we go into the late evening hours, these storms will start to fall apart as they move into Wisconsin. Most of these storms, I think by this point, will be just isolated damaging winds by around 10 to 11 o'clock. And another area that we need to keep an eye on is this over here in the central plains. This should be mostly a threat after sunset, but I think damaging winds, hail, and a low tornado risk will exist with this area of storms as we go into the mid to late evening and overnight hours across Nebraska, South Dakota, and then that would eventually move into Iowa during the very early morning hours on Tuesday. So definitely make sure that you're staying weather aware. And then on Tuesday, more scattered showers and thunderstorms will be possible across the northern plains, but the area of more concern right now for Tuesday will be both in the central plains and the Midwest. This is what it looks like on Tuesday on the future radar. We are expecting some showers and thunderstorms to fire off during the mid to late afternoon across parts of the Midwest, in addition to areas near Kansas City, where the greatest concern again will be damaging winds and large hail, low tornado risk back over in the Midwest, and then a possibly slightly more elevated tornado threat back over and around the Kansas City metro area during the afternoon and early evening hours. Notice how these storms will move into areas like Chicago and also Milwaukee during the late afternoon. Again, generally speaking, hail and wind being the greatest concerns, and then a more significant line of thunderstorms will develop back over near Kansas City during the late afternoon and early evening before eventually crashing down to the south across the Ozarks, and then likely weakening as we go into Wednesday morning across southern Missouri in addition to Arkansas. And then beyond Tuesday, the threat of severe weather will continue, because on Wednesday we are expecting another round of some significant severe weather across parts of the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and even back into the Midwest, where damaging winds, hail, and a few tornadoes are all going to be a possibility on Wednesday. This will continue into areas like Kentucky and I think northern Tennessee as we go late into the evening hours on Wednesday. And then as we go into Thursday, the storm system will eventually move towards the northeast, where a few more isolated to scattered severe storms will be a possibility across the mid-Atlantic and as well as the northeast. And then on Friday and Saturday is when I think we're going to get at least a small break from the severe weather. I think we're not going to be talking about at least anything super significant on Friday or Saturday, but by around Sunday and Monday is when we're going to have to keep an eye on another big storm system ejecting over the Rockies, which may bring our next chance of significant severe weather, likely beginning on Monday of next week and then continuing in the middle and end of next week. So again, we are expecting a fairly active weather pattern here over the next 7 to 10 days with multiple chances of severe weather. It is likely that we're going to be live at least a few times over the next few days, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon so you're notified if and when we do go live. And get ready for some of the warmest weather of the year as we approach summer. Above average temperatures are likely across a large chunk of the lower 48 here over the next few days. By Saturday, we could actually have record-breaking high temperatures back over in the northern plains in the Midwest. On the flip side, below average temperatures are in the forecast if you're back along the West Coast. This trend will continue more than likely at least in the beginning of next week. So again, that's about a little over 7 days from now. Forecasted temperatures for Monday of this upcoming week are expected to be in the low 90s as far north as Iowa and even Minnesota, so very warm weather's on the horizon. You will not need a jacket by any means, at least on Monday. A little warm frontal boundary will be sitting right about here, so temperatures will naturally be a bit colder if you're in northern Minnesota or northern Wisconsin, and this is what it looks like by Thursday of this upcoming week. Notice how we could have temperatures into the low to mid 100s back over in parts of Nebraska, Kansas, and northeastern Colorado. Record-breaking high temperatures will be a possibility, and it's only going to get warmer as we go into Friday and to Saturday across the central northern plains and the Midwest. And as always, thank you all so much for watching today's forecast. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We'll have another video tomorrow going way more in detail about our severe weather that is upcoming this week, in addition to a likely live stream tomorrow afternoon and evening, and then maybe even another one on Tuesday and Wednesday. So stay tuned, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you're notified with the latest updates.